The city never slept, but sometimes it closed its eyes. Fog curled along the avenues of New York like dreams dissolving in daylight, and the towers dissolved into the chilled air. Somewhere above this restless sprawl, a familiar silhouette balanced on the edge of a rooftop. But he was not the same hero people imagined. Spider-Man's posture was slouched, his movements sloppy. Normally, he danced between skyscrapers like poetry in motion. Tonight, it was more like stumbling between commas. Onlookers below whispered, some snapping shaky phone videos. Is Spider-Man drunk? He wasn't. Not on alcohol, but on exhaustion, grief, and the kind of failure that doesn't just chip away at you. It hollows you out. Inside the mask, Peter Parker muttered angrily to himself. Too late. Always too late. One more fire, one more scream, and I couldn't save him. His chest hurt, not from bruises, but from memory. Only days earlier, a child had died in a blaze before he could reach them. The headlines had screamed, "Spider-Man failed again." And though he'd risked everything, one missed second had become another grave he felt responsible for. The web-slinger lurched forward on the rooftop railing, his balance off. Even his spider sense felt dulled against the ache in his heart. For once, Spider-Man wasn't the city's agile guardian. He looked like a man staggering home after too many bitter nights. For the first time since he put on the mask, Peter felt tempted to just stop, to hang up the webs and admit, maybe the city didn't need him after all. Maybe it only needed the idea of him, printed in blurry news photos. Not the flesh and blood man inside who could bleed, who could fail, who could shatter. He crouched on the ledge, the world spinning faintly under the hum of neon. To the people below, it looked like Spider-Man was drunk. To Peter, it felt like drowning. Then came a voice, calm, steady, unmistakable. You're going to fall if you keep standing like that. Peter whipped his head toward the sound. From the far side of the roof, walking through the haze of rooftop steam vents, was Keanu Reeves. Long black coat trailing, face drawn yet peaceful, eyes steady as a lighthouse through fog. Spider-Man groaned beneath the mask. I can't even hallucinate normal people, huh? I get you. Keanu smirked faintly, sitting down on a rusted air unit like he had all the time in the world. You're not imagining me. I was shooting something 2 blocks over. Saw the crowd pointing their phones at you. Thought you could use someone to remind you you're not a ghost. Peter froze. Of all nights, why now? Why him? He didn't answer. Instead, he asked bitterly, "Tell me something. Do you think I look drunk to them? Like the city's clown?" Keanu's tone didn't waver. "No, you look tired, and tired is human." Spider-Man laughed bitterly under the mask. Humans not good enough for this job. Maybe, Keanu said quietly. Or maybe it's the only thing that makes the job worth doing. Just then, a scream cut through the alley. Sharp, terrified, too close to ignore. Spider-Man flinched but stayed frozen. Not tonight. I can't. I'll just fail again. Keanu stood, his profile shadowed against the city glow. Or maybe tonight is the night you don't. The scream grew sharper, echoing against the brick walls below, as though the city itself demanded an answer. Spider-Man stood frozen on the edge of the roof, every muscle heavy with doubt. Usually, his instincts leapt ahead of thought. Tonight, his instincts felt shackled. Keanu Reeves stepped closer, voice steady. If you don't move, someone else pays the price. You don't have to be perfect, Peter. You just have to be there. Peter's throat caught at the sound of his name. How does he know? But there was no time to ask. The scream pierced again. With a shaky exhale, Spider-Man launched himself off the building. His swing was uneven, his arc clumsy compared to his usual grace, but momentum carried him to the street below. The alley was lit by the harsh glow of a flickering sign. 3 muggers pinning a young woman against the wall, snatching at her purse, one pressing a knife dangerously close. Spider-Man aimed his web shooters, but his hands trembled. The shot went wide, splattering against a trash can. Too slow, his mind hissed. Then, another figure dropped into the alley, coated in black, calm as the night itself. Keanu Reeves. He wasn't Spider-Man, but years of training for roles had left him more than just a performer. He moved with deliberate precision, intercepting the first thug with a bone-sharp kick that sent the man sprawling. ... Now, Keanu barked, his voice ringing clear. Spider-Man snapped back, firing his web with renewed focus. This time it connected, snapping the knife from a mugger's hand and pinning it to the wall. The third tripped on a line of web, stretched across the alley floor, crashing hard onto the pavement. The entire skirmish ended in less than 15 seconds. Messy, chaotic, but enough. The girl bolted away, clutching her bag, whispering a shaky thank you into the shadows. Spider-Man landed beside Keanu, his breathing ragged. That wasn't my best work. Keanu glanced at the tangled webs and groaning thugs. Doesn't matter. She's safe, and you stood up. Peter slumped against the wall, masking his tremor with a shaky laugh. The internet's going to say Spider-Man's drunk on duty. Keanu's reply was firm. Let them. You and I will know the truth. You're drunk on grief, not on whiskey. And still, you chose to fight. When the police arrived, the thugs were strung up neatly for processing. Spider-Man had vanished back to the rooftops, Keanu climbing after him with surprising agility. They perched again above the skyline, the echo of sirens chasing into distance. Peter snapped, You don't get it, Reeves. Every time I step out here, someone writes the failures. Kid dies in a fire? My fault. Someone gets away? My fault. Even when I win, somebody prints a headline calling me reckless. And tonight, look at me. I can barely stick a landing. Keanu studied him, letting the weight of silence stretch before answering. You think I don't know what it feels like for people to confuse you with your mistakes? To see only a story, not the person living it? I've spent my life being a shadow for other people's fantasies. But there are nights where I wish someone would stop and ask me what I carry. Peter blinked behind the mask. He never expected that answer. Keanu had lived decades as characters. Neo, Wick, Constantine. To the world, symbols. To himself, just a man carrying his own invisible weight. For the first time in hours, Peter wasn't laughing bitterly. He was listening. Just as their breathing calmed, the city screamed again. But this time not just a cry. A shrill alarm tore across the streets, the unmistakable howl of a bank security system. Spider-Man muttered, "Of course, because the city doesn't wait for therapy sessions." Across the block, a bank's glass doors blasted outward as armed robbers surged, dragging hostages. Flashing gun barrels glittered under the fluorescent glow. Spider-Man's knees locked, his chest pounded. He whispered to himself, "What if I can't do it this time? What if—" Keanu's voice was sharp, cutting through the fog. "Then we do it together." Spider-Man swung down first, not with elegance, but with urgency, crashing into the middle of the chaos. Webs fired, grabbing one rifle, yanking it clean into the air. But his hands shook again, missing the second. Shots cracked, bullets sparking off marble columns. And then Keanu Reeves stepped into the open, fearless. He ducked low behind a pillar, sweeping one leg under a gunman with surprising dexterity. The weapon clattered free. He moved not like a stuntman performing, but like a man who had rehearsed courage until it became muscle memory. The hostages screamed, struggling against their captors. Spider-Man wrapped two thugs in frantic silk, his quips absent tonight. He wasn't joking. He was surviving. One robber leveled a handgun square at his head. Peter froze, and Keanu moved. In a sudden, perfect motion, he lunged, knocking the weapon off target. The blast lit up the ceiling instead. Together, they took the man down. Spider-Man binding, Keanu striking clean. The chaos thinned. But down in the vault, more trouble stirred. A muffled hum vibrated through the building's belly. Spider-Man's spider sense flickered to life, not sharp, not clean, but heavy, like warning bells underwater. He turned to Keanu. "They've planted explosives, and my head feels off, like I can't process it properly." Keanu's answer came steady. "Then lean on me." The two men pressed forward toward the stairwell, the weight of the city pressing with them. Above, police lights spun like restless stars. But down below, in the silence of the vault, tick, tick, tick grew louder. This wasn't just fatigue anymore. It was catastrophe, seconds from erupting. The stairwell spiraled down like the throat of the city, each step echoing with the ominous tick, 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 vibrating faintly through the concrete walls. Spider-Man's boots squeaked against the steps. His grip on the railing faltered once. He caught himself, cursing under his breath. "She!" cried softly together with him. "Thank you, gratitude, from my painful heart." No, this wasn't just fatigue anymore. It was catastrophe, seconds from erupting. The stairwell, Keanu was behind him, steady as a metronome. To Peter, it was maddening. This man wasn't bitten by a spider, didn't have webs or senses or reflexes, and yet he moved more assuredly tonight. They reached the vault level. It was a cavernous chamber dimly lit by emergency lamps. And there it was, the vault door, a colossal disk of steel. Around it, 4 men crouched near satchels bristling with wires and sticks of explosives. The bombs blinked with sinister red lights. 2 minutes. One robber barked, checking his watch. Spider-Man perched above them on a support beam, heart pounding. Sweat trickled under his mask. He whispered to Keanu, My hands are still shaking. If I miss..." "Then you miss," Keanu replied, calm as ever. "But what matters is you tried. I'll close the distance." Peter gritted his teeth, feeling like his failures were dragging against every web line. He launched his first shot of webbing, missed the detonator wires by inches. The silk splattered uselessly to the floor. One robber froze, shouting, "It's him! Spider-Man!" Bullets sprayed upward. Peter dodged with less elegance than usual, his shoulder grazing a beam. Pain throbbed. His grip slicked. He almost fell. Keanu surged forward. He wasn't Spider-Man, but his body moved like water. A sudden spin, a kick to one gunman's wrist. The gun hit the floor with a metallic scream. Peter recovered just enough to fire webs, cocooning the weapon. The fight fractured into chaos. Keanu slammed one thug against the wall, efficient and quick, no wasted movement. Spider-Man clung to the ceiling, web snapping, pinning another robber to a pillar. But the bombs still ticked. Peter dropped beside the vault, chest heaving. I can't. Too many wires. My head's not clear enough." The blinking red lights mocked him. Each blink was another heartbeat he couldn't control. The image of the boy in the fire flared again in his mind, stinging his conscience. His knees buckled. Keanu crouched beside him, lowering himself to the bomb. His voice was painfully steady. "I've trained this scene 100 times for movies. Pretend, wires, fake danger. But the motions, they're still in here." He tapped his temple gently. Peter shook his head violently. "That's not enough. If you cut the wrong wire, everyone above us." Keanu's hand rested firmly on his shoulder. "Peter, heroes aren't born from certainty. They're born from choices. Now, help me." Peter's whole body trembled. He wasn't the sure, witty Spider-Man right now. He was the scared kid again. But he nodded. "Okay, the yellow's the main trigger. The black wires stabilize it. If they're looped, cut the second, not the first." Keanu's fingers moved, careful but unflinching, his breathing even. Peter's voice faltered. "If this goes wrong, Keanu, then we fail. Together. Tick. Tick." Keanu pulled the wire free. The ticking grew faster for a breath. Peter's heart almost stopped. Then, silence. The red light froze. Peter stumbled back, collapsing against the steel of the vault, chest heaving like he'd run miles. Keanu sat back on his haunches, calmly dropping the disabled charge aside. Peter tore off his mask, eyes wild, sweat streaking his hair. "You're not even supposed to be here. You're not bitten, not a soldier, not—" Keanu's small smile stopped him. "Not a hero? Maybe not. But tonight, I chose to be something more than an actor. And you remembered how to choose too." Peter shoved his face into his hands. He wasn't crying, not exactly, but the tidal wave of pent-up guilt, exhaustion, and relief crashed through him all at once. For once, he didn't hide it. "You saved them," he whispered. "We saved them," Keanu corrected softly. By the time the police stormed in, all they saw were bound robbers dangling in webs and confiscated explosives. The vault was intact. The building was safe. Spider-Man had saved the day again, but no one would ever know the quiet truth that a man in a black coat, a man famous for playing heroes on screen, had been a hero in silence while the city slept. On the rooftop afterward, Peter pulled his mask back on, unsure how to put any of it into words. He turned to Keanu. "You realize nobody's ever going to believe me about tonight." Keanu shrugged lightly, gazing across the skyline. "That's fine. Stories aren't about who believes them. Sometimes the most important ones are the ones only two people will ever know." Peter laughed tiredly through the mask. "You sound like Yoda, you know that?" Keanu cracked the faintest grin. "Nah, he's way shorter." And for the first time all night, Peter laughed genuinely. His shoulders relaxed. Above them, dawn crawled over the city. A night of failure, fumbling, and doubt had ended in unlikely triumph. And Spider-Man had learned that even heroes are allowed to falter, because sometimes someone else is there to remind them how to stand. The orange glow of dawn began creeping across New York's skyline. Steam rose from grates on the streets below, as if the city itself sighed in relief that the night had finally passed. On a rooftop overlooking the police cordon around the bank, Spider-Man sat with his mask pulled halfway off, gulping down the cold air, still trembling a little. Beside him stood Keanu Reeves, his coat stirring in the soft breeze, eyes calm and thoughtful as he watched the patrol cars. The chaos below was already being written into headlines. Spider-Man saves bank. Spider-Man stops another gang. Spider-Man prevents explosion. To the public, it was another reckless night of their masked vigilante. But the truth was far messier. Spider-Man hadn't been perfect. He had stumbled, doubted, felt crushed under failure. He had looked drunk on despair. And yet he had still stood, still fought, still saved. Not because he was flawless, but because a stranger reminded him that standing mattered more than perfection. Peter Parker finally spoke, voice hoarse. "I kept telling myself I was failing, Keanu. I wasn't enough, that every headline was right. Tonight, I wasn't even myself, and still." He trailed off, staring at the city stretching into morning. Keanu nodded once, his words quiet. "Perfection was never the goal, Peter. Love is. Responsibility is. Doing what you can with what you have, even when it isn't pretty." For a long time, Spider-Man just breathed, feeling that settle into the cracks of his doubt. He whispered, "I never thought a movie star would be the one to remind me I'm human under this mask." Keanu smirked softly, shrugging. "Maybe because I've spent my whole life pretending to be heroes. Tonight, I didn't have to pretend." The newspapers the next day would still criticize. Some pundits would still sneer. They'd all debate whether Spider-Man swung unevenly, whether he almost jeopardized lives. They'd never know the bomb that could have taken out 3 city blocks. They'd never know the man who helped him steady his hands. But maybe that was fine, because Peter realized something. The city didn't need to praise him. They just needed him there. They just needed him to keep choosing them, even when it cost him everything. And for once, that knowledge didn't crush him. It humbled him. As they prepared to part ways, Peter finally stood from the ledge, mask tugged securely back over his face. So, what happens next? You go back to film sets pretending to be a hero? I go back to rooftops actually trying to be one? Keanu chuckled. Something like that, but maybe you'll remember you're allowed to stumble, allowed to doubt, allowed to ask for help. Even Spider-Man can't swing forever without rest. Peter's lenses narrowed, reflecting the growing sun. For the first time in days, the world didn't look like a blur through tired eyes. He felt lighter. Keanu added quietly, turning to leave, "You keep carrying the mask, Peter, and I'll keep carrying the reminder that sometimes even stories can step off the screen and matter." As Spider-Man leapt into the rising skyline, his thoughts echoed like a narration over the hum of the waking city. "Last night, I lost control. I staggered. I doubted. I looked like anything but a hero. But maybe being a hero was never about looking the part. Maybe it's about choosing to stand when your knees shake, about saving one life, even when you feel like you can't save yourself." The city doesn't always believe in me. The headlines rarely do. But as long as someone is out there screaming for help in the dark, I'll keep answering, even broken, even afraid, because that's the choice of a hero, not to be fearless, but to keep choosing. On a quiet street, Keanu Reeves melted into a crowd of mourning commuters. To them, he was just another man under a black coat, anonymous in the tide. But inside, he carried something the world might never learn. That, for one night, he wasn't just an actor. He was a steady hand beside a faltering hero, and together, they'd kept the city breathing. This dramatized story reminds us that even heroes falter. They stumble, they crack, they break under the impossible weight of expectations. But humanity itself is the hero's core. Spider-Man wasn't less for doubting. He was more for choosing anyway. Keanu Reeves wasn't diminished for not being bitten by a spider. He was greater for stepping into danger anyway. True courage isn't about having powers. It's about standing, even when your legs shake. So the next time you feel like you're failing, when life makes you stumble as though drunk with exhaustion, remember Spider-Man. Remember Keanu. Heroes are not flawless. Heroes are human. And you can be one too, by simply choosing to stand when it matters most. Soft outro music fades. Screenshot of Spider-Man swinging into morning light. Keanu Reeves walking into a city crowd. Screen fades to black.